Whatever lucid dreaming actually is, it seems to fall into two distinct categories. The first being much better known and written about than the second. The first is the currently more traditional and better publicized dream-induced lucid dreaming, DILD. This method of lucid dreaming involves training oneself to regain waking consciousness while already in the middle of a regular dream, a nearly impossible thing to do. The second method, however, is the lesser-known waking-induced lucid dream, WILD, a simpler and far more direct approach that involves entering into a lucid dream directly, without having to first fall asleep and have regular dreams. The problem with DILDs is the need to repeatedly practice increasingly exotic techniques, singularly designed to indirectly rally awareness once you have already fallen asleep and begun to have ordinary dreams. One thereby learns to recognize cues in dreaming that remind you to wake up and become conscious in them. Thus, with dream-induced lucid dreaming, there really is no control as such, nor technique involved besides that of the persistent effort of trying to make it happen and then hoping for the best. A purely chuck-it-and-chance-it method. DILDs is an entirely random method requiring a prolonged and protracted effort that can often take months or even years to perfect. Moreover, even though you will eventually begin to experience lucid dreaming using such an awkward, if not clumsy method, it will always remain something that's completely outside of your own volitional control, since recognizing and responding to cues within a dream is all you can do. The manner in which DILDs works increases the probability of your having more lucid dreams than otherwise, but that's all there is to it. Unfortunately, the process is somewhat long and drawn out, so that most people just don't have the patience to persevere for long enough to ever realize any decent results. You can, however, rest assured that eventually, and providing you don't lose interest, you will begin to start having lucid dreams that way, but only very sporadically and tenuously at first, and still with absolutely no guarantee whatsoever of ever having any more of them beyond that of it gradually becoming more and more usual to do so. DILDs do work, eventually, but only with a process that can rather annoyingly take almost forever to master. On the other hand, with WILDs, the complete opposite is the case. Moreover, with WILDs, whether or not you lucid dream is reduced to being purely a matter of learning to become aware of the different stages of falling asleep and then exploiting them to one's own best advantage. The whole emphasis of the WILD technique depends entirely upon being able to gauge exactly when you have reached the required amount of physical, emotional, and mental relaxation, and then, when you judge the time as right, consciously and quite deliberately stepping out into a completely lucid dream reality that to all extents and purposes appears as real as anything can be, all the while knowing that it's only a dream. The very real and genuine problem with DILDs is that you simply cannot ever know in advance if you are actually going to lucid dream or not, whereas with WILDs you either lucid dream or not by choice alone. The advantage therefore WILDs has over DILDs is pretty obvious. I mean, why gamble on lucid dreaming with DILDs when you can instead bet on a sure thing every time with WILDs? Good question, huh? The differences between these two widely differing methods are really quite remarkable. The place in awareness one arrives at is probably basically the same in both instances, even though how one arrives there is completely different. The end result is still finding oneself in just about the same general area of altered awareness. I guess what really puzzles me is that, generally speaking, the vast majority of people seeking the experience of lucid dreaming all tend to go by the DILDs route instead of WILDs. I can't understand why, when it's obvious that even one single experience of WILDs is equal to many, many experiences of DILDs. Perhaps because for some inexplicable reason, WILDs, although known about and documented, are considered by the dreaming community to be the more difficult method of the two. I would say quite unjustifiably so. Another distinct problem with DILDing is that of not always ending up in a lucid dream, when you happen to have one that is, in full possession of your waking memory and mental faculties. a state of awareness perhaps better described as being only semi-lucid, in that things in the dream happen more randomly and are thus dream-driven. That although you may have the distinct impression of actually being in a dreaming situation instead of being awake, the thought and idea remains a vague one, and the elements of the dream as such are far more compelling. Someone in such a dream may, for example, talk to you or ask you something, and you'll become completely involved in replying. You'll get caught up in the action at hand, as if you were experiencing a real-life situation instead of only a dreaming one. One's objectivity of actually being in a dreaming situation becomes and remains impaired, so to speak, and it becomes just as easy to fall right back into a non-lucid state, completely forgetting that you are even awake at all. Don't get me wrong, these semi-lucid dreams can still be a whole lot of fun. You can find yourself in all sorts of novel situations, as most of our dreams are, and still know for sure that you're dreaming and just kind of go along with whatever happens to be occurring. It's just that one is not completely lucid and fully in control of oneself in them, and is, for instance, far more impulsive. Something happens in the dream and you just go along with it. Since full access to normal waking memory is impaired or lacking to varying degrees, you fail to question it and drift along just like we do in any ordinary dream. One moment you're in a room and the next outside, whereas with Wiles, full lucidity and total recall are always available from beginning to end. With Wiles, you enter into the dreaming state with exactly the same awareness you lay down to dream with. Things like semi-lucidity do not even generally occur other than under rather unusual and advanced circumstances. Suffice to say, for now anyway, that the best way to approach lucid dreaming, especially for the beginner, is definitely from the point of view of Wiles rather than DILDs, if only because Wiles are much easier to induce and maintain in terms of experiencing full lucidity and recall from beginning to end. With DILDs, you will never quite know how you are doing it. The entire process is clouded, and so the whole experience borders on the mystical, whereas with Wiles, especially the left-sided version of them, the complete opposite is usually the case. Generally speaking, Wiles seem almost factual compared to the fuzzy vagueness of DILDs. Finally, with DILDs, disorientation, and the overcoming of it, is the norm. In DILDs, one struggles to become aware whilst already having a dream, the challenge to do so being enormous to say the least. With Wiles, clarity and full recall always occur as one enters into the dreaming state from the point of view of already being awake. If you're new to lucid dreaming, I'd recommend not even bothering with DILDs at all, at least in the initial stages, and go directly to Wiles. If, however, you already have been lucky enough to have some experience of lucid dreaming via DILDs, then I'd say you'd better prepare yourself for a sock in the jaw, if not a complete revolution in terms of your lucid dreaming to date, because, oh boy, you are going to be so very pleasantly surprised at the contrast and ease existing between these two methods. Waking-induced lucid dreams. Think about it. The ability to enter directly into a dreaming state from the point of view of already being fully awake and conscious. A method that involves no more guessing games about whether or not you will be able to lucid dream tonight. A method that requires nothing more fancy or expensive to put into practice than your usual sleeping attire and something comfortable to lie down on, and that, when mastered and perfected, basically means lucid dreaming on demand to virtually anyone who wants to do it. This is precisely what you can learn to do right now. Welcome then to the wonderful world of waking-induced lucid dreaming. Wild. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this instruction intriguing and inspiring and would like to learn more. In which case, please subscribe to this channel and/or check back soon for the next video update in this series. Anyway, bye for now. Plus see you soon in the next supplemental video that will be added soon. See ya!